Hello everyone, it's the weekend. Welcome to Massey United Insurance's Line and Length. It's a cricket program where we look at the sport not only in the region but internationally as well. I'm Barry Wilkinson. Boy, we got a good show for you today. We're going to go live to Sri Lanka and talk to Fazir Mohammed, the cricket journalist and commentator, who's going to tell us what really went wrong with the West Indies in Sri Lanka as they lost that test series 2-0. We also look ahead to the start of the ODI series with Carlos Brathwaite looking to make a big impact for the West Indies like he did in that practice match. Also on today's show, the West Indies players, at least some of them, are back in the Caribbean, getting ready to play in the upcoming Professional Cricket League. We are going to talk to some of them about what goals they have for the PCL and perhaps what they think contributed to their defeat in Sri Lanka. We have a leading lawyer in who is going to look at the Chris Kieran's perjury case, also at that landmark case involving Lendl Simmons and, of course, his cousin, Phil Simmons, head coach of the West Indies team, who is due to be back in his reins pretty soon. We got an action-packed program. Don't you move. This is Massey United Insurance's Line and Length.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
So last week, Wednesday, some members of the West Indies team returned home, and those players will be playing for their respective countries and their respective franchises in the upcoming Professional Cricket League. Let's go and join our man on the spot, Joel Manning. He was at the Grantley Adams International Airport. Joel, who do you speak to? Tell me what's happening.
Yeah, we're here with West Indies Vice Captain Craig Brathwaite. Now, Craig, you didn't have the best of times with the bat, but you actually shocked many taking 6 with the ball in the second innings, raising questions about whether your bowling is actually underrated. But as a batsman, how did you find the conditions in Sri Lanka?
I think the conditions, were quite good. They had obviously Haraf, experienced bowler, but the times behind unit we didn't outplay ourselves. We didn't build a big partnership, so that really cost us.
Okay, and then looking ahead as vice captain, you had 2 defeats. Australia being a tougher opposition, how do you bounce back as a team from here?
Well, it's just about belief. It's never going to be easy, but as a team, once we keep believing, and we build those partnerships, so that's where we really missed out in this series. I think we could do well.
Okay, and then finally, the PCL tournament is right on us. How do you feel about Barbados' chances in this year's PCL tournament?
Well, I have full support of the team, backing the team 110%. I think we have what it takes, to win the title, and it's just about the team playing together and enjoying it.
All right, thanks a lot, Craig.
Yeah,
all the best for the future.
Yeah.
Warwick, you didn't play in the first test, but you debuted in the second. Firstly, how does it feel to be a West Indies cricketer?
Well, the feeling is amazing, to be honest. It's a dream come true. I look forward to this from the time I was going to school at Commonwealth. All my goals to play for West Indies now I have accomplished it. For now is to maintain my play and continue to perform.
Okay, you picked up 4 in the first innings, 2 in the second. Do you believe that the conditions in Sri Lanka favoured your style of bowling?
Definitely. Got a lot of assistance from the pitch, but at the same time, at that level, just can't get assistance. You have to be consistent and use your skills as well.
Many may also say that it favoured your batting. Many shots in that second innings. Just tell us a bit about what was going through your head while you were at the crease there.
Well, I really think that we still had a chance of winning, so went out there being positive, and hopefully that we could knock off the runs, but unfortunately we didn't. So from there, it's just my mindset to be positive.
Kemar, just tell us a bit about the conditions in Sri Lanka. Do you believe that they were favourable?
No, for fast bowling, no, it wasn't favourable. Obviously, the results show fast bowlers didn't get much wickets in the series. The spinners got most of the wickets, and they were very dry wickets, and the ball spun a lot. So it's very hard for us as fast bowlers to get wickets out there, but I think we did a very good job. Support the spinners that we had on our side, and obviously do the job that's at hand.
Okay, and then there are also many questions being raised about your fitness level in recent times. What level of fitness do you believe you're currently at?
I'm good. I played 2 test matches and I think I'm fit. Once I get on the part, I'm fit. The selectors have the faith in me. They think I'm fit enough to play cricket, so that's why they picked me. So I don't think the fitness level is a problem anymore.
Okay, then finally, in terms of looking ahead to Australia, do you believe then that the West Indies bowlers will favour a lot better in these conditions?
Well, obviously, yeah. Obviously, fast bowling in Australia is going to be a key because the ball doesn't spin much in Australia. Spinners don't really get much wickets in Australia, so the fast bowler had to come up to par and obviously get the wickets on there and obviously put the team in good positions.
Now, this has been your first tour with the West Indies. How do you enjoy the experience?
I think it was a very good experience overseas because I get to know the players more and get to see different place and different atmosphere. It was a very good experience.
Okay, and then being in the company of the more senior West Indies players, were you able to interact with them and basically get some knowledge about touring and cricket on a whole?
Yeah, I was interacting with the senior guys, especially Ramdin and Marlon, and I gained a lot from them, knowing that they are around for a few years, so it is good to have a chat with them and be around them and get to learn things about touring and West Indies cricket and being adapted to the situation.
Okay, and then finally looking ahead to the PCL tournament, what do you believe are your chances in terms of your performances for this year's tournament?
Well, I am looking forward to have a good tournament because I'm back from the West Indies tour now, so I look to go and get some runs and do well. So I am looking forward to it and try to get some runs.
All right, thanks a lot and all the best.
Thank you.
So Barry, some of the West Indies team is back home and they're all looking forward to this year's PCL tournament. I am Joel Manning for Line and Length Network.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
So welcome back to the program. As promised, let's go live now to Colombo, Sri Lanka, and talk to Fazir Mohammed, who's been covering the series, of course, on television and radio. Faz, so good to join you. I know it's pretty late down there in Colombo. First of all, we're going to look back at this test series because the West Indies really should have won that last test. What were your initial and overall thoughts of that West Indies test series after they lost 2-0?
Well, Barry, of course, there's no surprise at the end of the day that the West Indies would have lost the series by 2-0. When you really put it in perspective, yes, there were competitive periods. We've seen that before when the West Indies have been here previously. If you overlook the rain ruin tour of 20, when you go back to 2005, even with that depleted team, the West Indies had periods when they might have been able to push through for a victory. But essentially, what those two matches merely reinforced is that the West Indies are competitive in pieces, but can't put it together for the duration of a test match. As you mentioned on that last day, as it turned out, 80 for 1, chasing 244, with a really confident match-winning test team, you would back the batting side. But from the moment there was the breakthrough, you saw the old vulnerability of the West Indies being exposed. So many different areas that we can elaborate upon. Not enough time to do it, of course, but certainly it merely reinforced that the West Indies don't really have a culture of winning at the moment, but from the moment there's a moment of anxiety, they go back into the losing mode.
Now, Phil Simmons seems to be on his way back. How much of a distraction was him not being part of that team to that young squad? And how did Eldin Baptiste, in your opinion, do after seeing him control the team for those first two test matches?
To be quite fair, I don't think it would have made that much of a difference because over the years, so many ups and downs in the West Indies team, whether it's players being sacked, whether it's players choosing not to play, whether it's coaches being removed just before the start of a series like last year with Otis Gibson at home to Bangladesh. These seem to be the norm in West Indies cricket. As to whether or not Eldin Baptiste was able to make a positive difference in the West Indies team, again, that is difficult to say because once more, they didn't play any different to what you would have expected. Maybe they made a mistake, and I think generally the feeling is they made a mistake in not picking Jomel Warrican for the first test match, and Kohli performed well in the second test. But as I said, Barry, in all honesty, with Phil Simmons, without Phil Simmons, I didn't think the West Indies would have been able to defeat Sri Lanka in test cricket.
You mentioned, Faz, Andrew here, you mentioned Jamel Warwick. And in terms of some of the other better performers, Jermaine Blackwood seemed to perform pretty well. But if you listen to skipper Jason Holder, he seemed to be particularly pleased with the bowlers, though.
Yes, indeed, and for good reason, because if you look at it, yes, Sri Lanka got 484 in the first innings in goal, but that had a lot to do, one, with the flat pitch, the fact that Devendra Bishu was not used properly, which is a continuing issue with leg spinners in West Indies cricket at the highest level, and the fact that 5 catches were dropped. Dinesh Chandimal got 151. He was dropped on 11 and dropped a couple more times, and a few other catches were put down. In the second test match in Colombo at the Pisara Oval, you saw the West Indies limiting Sri Lanka to 200 and 206. You really can't ask for more than that from your bowler. So at the end of the day, yes, there were some bright sparks with the batting, most notably, as you mentioned, Jermaine Blackwood with that 92 in the second innings in goal. But really it was the bowlers who shone during the course of these 2 test matches.
Your thoughts on the captaincy of Jason Holder? Did he marshal his troops well? Did he rotate the bowling well? There was a big surprise package in Craig Brathwaite in that 6-wicket haul.
And I think even Jason Holder was surprised by that, because as Craig explained afterwards, he actually had to urge his captain to give him a bowl, and it turned out to be very, very successful. I think we have to remember that Jason Holder is just 23 years of age. You can't expect him to have all the bells and whistles immediately as an experienced test captain would. And also you're seeing the natural defensiveness of a defeatist mindset that has become the norm in West Indies cricket, going all the way back to Brian Lara and Carl Hooper. When they were West Indies captains, they would invariably seek the cautious option first rather than anything else. And that works against a team that is trying to develop a winning mindset. So that is obviously going to work against him for some time, because for a young player, himself feeling his way in international cricket, trying to marshal troops when you got his senior players not always standing up. Dinesh Ramdan played the ugliest stroke that he might have played in all of his international career in the test match in Colombo. Marlon Samuels, for all of his experience, has barely gotten a run against Sri Lanka. That was another burden. So I think Holder did as well as could be expected in the circumstances, and he would certainly need to be far more proactive and aggressive as a captain if the West Indies are to move forward.
As we look forward, Faz, the couple of one-day internationals and then the T20s, what difference can we expect? Some new players have gone up, some experienced players in terms of the particular one-day international format. Andre Russell, Sunil Narayan, Ravi Rampal. What can we expect looking forward to the one-day internationals?
Well, Andrew, I would expect the West Indies, by very nature, to be far more competitive in the shorter forms of the game, more so the T20s. For the Sri Lankans, they're trying a few new players themselves, so they've got a pretty experimental unit. Remember, there's no Sangakkara, no Jayawardena, no Murali anymore, but they do have some experienced hands still available to them. But for the West Indies, this is an opportunity, as we invariably find, performing poorly in the test matches and lifting spirits somewhat with their performances in the one-dayers. But again, the Sri Lankans themselves will be mindful, and I think the ICC would have reminded everyone during the course of the past week that points are now important and ratings are now important to qualify automatically for the 2019 World Cup. So it's not just a series in isolation. It's important for the West Indies, having missed out on the Champions Trophy for 2017, to ensure that they get some wins under their belts for their own confidence and for their own rankings ahead of the 2019 World Cup.
Let's keep it on a positive trend then. Carlos Brathwaite in that game prior to the first one international, which is on Sunday. Carlos Brathwaite scored a tremendous century, and Andre Russell also made 89. I think they put on 193 runs in whirlwind time. Would that give them some confidence leading into that first one international on Sunday morning?
It must, and indeed, especially with the fact that they were struggling so badly to be 109 for 7 before that partnership between Russell and Brathwaite. And that's what they will bring to the game. And I think that's what, if the weather holds, and we've been having an issue with the weather in Colombo, especially with showers almost every evening, and that could affect the 2 day-night one-dayers, the first 2 at the Premadasa. But let's hope the weather holds, because I think the fans here in Colombo are more gravitating towards the shorter forms of the game, and they are certainly hoping that the West Indies can live up to their billing. And from what we saw in that warm-up match, if the top order is a concern, you've always got Andrew Russell, Carlos Brathwaite, maybe even the skipper himself, ready to blaze away lower down in the order. But it's really important for all on the West Indies lineup, with the final 11 chosen, to click properly and show what the West Indies are capable, if only in the shorter form of the game.
Faz, choose a winner for us for that one-day series.
It's difficult. I would say, my heart would say West Indies, especially because Sri Lanka are still indulging in some experimentation themselves. So I'll put my head on a block and say West Indies for the one-day series.
All right, Fazir Mohammed, thanks so much. Doing a good job there in Sri Lanka. And we look forward to talking a bit more on Massey United Insurance's Line and Length. We'll be right back. Don't move a muscle.
Across the Caribbean, more people are placing their trust in Massey United Insurance for the protection of the things that are important to them, their homes, businesses, and their prized possessions. That's because Massey United Insurance offers excellent general insurance coverage to help you manage whatever life sends your way. Our cadre of well-reputed agencies and trained insurance professionals are always ready to provide you with sound advice and prompt service. Choose the security and sound strength that is Massey United Insurance.
We're back on Massey United Insurance's Line and Length. In this segment, we're going to look at things happening around the cricketing world and home. We start, first of all, with the Simmons, Phil Simmons, Lendl Simmons, and some historic landmark cases. Let's start with the younger cousin. We're going to start, first of all, with Lendl Simmons, so we know a bit more about that particular instance as we record. Of course, this week in Trinidad and Tobago, Lendl Simmons had to pay Trinidad and Tobago dollars $150,000 in a landmark case against Theresa Ho in a case of internet images being broadcast. To discuss this and some other segments, we're going to speak with our well-respected attorney at law, Mr. Philip Nichols. Philip, thanks for coming on the program. You have been following this case. Was this a landmark case that you thought went with the right decision at the end?
Hello, Barry. Thanks for having me. Yeah, Barry, it certainly is a landmark case from the perspective that it has found someone liable for the new or the phenomenon that has exploded over social media of sexting. Mr. Simmons has been ordered to pay. He hasn't paid us yet because he still has a period of time to determine whether he's going to appeal or not. He's been ordered to pay approximately $25,000 US, 150,000 TT, for distribution of intimate photographs with his partner at the time over the internet. It is a common occurrence. I don't think there's anyone who has a mobile phone who has not received some salacious picture at some point in time.
I have never received anything of that. I don't know what I'm receiving, but I have never received anything of that.
It may have come as spam. We're not saying deliberately.
As my lawyer is present, I shall say no comment.
It may have come as spam. In other words, what we were saying is that people are disseminating these without thought. And apparently this young lady took a particular exception to it and has been proven right so far in bringing the case.
Had you been Lendl Simmons' lawyer, would you appeal the case?
Well, I've heard a difficult one. In reading the judgment, the judge was fairly scathing of Mrs. Simmons. He found that the young lady in question was by far the more credible witness. But there can be no doubt that he has had to have a somewhat creative use of the common law of invasion of confidential information, because there's no statutory equivalent of what there is in certain European countries or in the United States of revenge porn. He did refer in his judgment to all these things, but there are no such statutes on the books in Trinidad or in the rest of the Caribbean, as far as I know. But so the thing is far more easily sued in other countries. So I don't know if his attorneys, I don't know all the facts, he just know the judgment, would deem it's a point to appeal, but I think the sooner he gets it behind him, the better.
What sort of precedent does this set, Philip, in terms of the phenomena, as you call it, sexting? What Yeah, tell us your thoughts as a lawyer in terms of precedents.
Well, Andrew, it's kind of difficult because each situation will need to be looked at, in the particular facts. But it is not, there's a great deal of embarrassment that surrounds these things. And persons will need to weigh up whether or not they think that it is worth going
pursuing
in this situation. But certainly it's there. Whether it's going to be followed, one doesn't know. Again, sometimes it doesn't make sense, as we say, you bring in such a case against a person who is not able to pay.
Well, in this case, Simmons is able.
How does a judge determine if a person can pay and what they can afford to pay?
Right.
I don't think that necessarily came into it in that circumstance. It certainly would have been a decision that her attorneys took when they filed the case, when they determined if they were successful, if they were likely to get it back. The judge found that there was a certain aggravating features by his behavior in awarding damages.
So if he can't pay, he's going to go jail? Or if he refuses to pay, he's going to go prison?
I don't know if it's so much as can't pay or refuses to pay. I think if he doesn't appeal it, he would be advised. There are certain measures that she'll be able to take to enforce the judgment, but if he doesn't appeal it, I'm fairly sure that the IPL has treated him kindly.
Mm-hmm. I asked that question because let's say it was like a vagrant who was...
then you wouldn't bring the case.
So there you go.
Right.
So the case is brought against him for that particular money based on his profile.
No, I can't say that necessarily. But I think that in one of the reasons why they would have decided to go ahead is that, one, if they were successful, there's a chance of payment being made.
All right. Well, she was successful. I think it was a very interesting ruling, and it teaches us yourself, Andrew, and Philip. Since you guys,
Barry, we all have our cell phones. Just let young Wilkinson know we all have cell phones. Just remember that.
So remember next time you forward some.
No, I only forward emails of business nature. All right, look. Let's talk about another Simmons. He was in trouble about 5 weeks ago, or could it be more or so, regarding this whole issue of the Sri Lankan tour. We know that Phil Simmons didn't go. As of Thursday evening, the latest news was that he was scheduled to come back. The West Indies Cricket Board was still to make a statement, but we had reported that Phil Simmons was on his way back to rejoin the West Indies team. Good news, you reckon, Philip?
I would say it was expected news. Whether it's good or bad, I don't think that you could just say from the outside. I think when the initial hoo-ha came about, it was quite clear that within days, measures were being put in place to lead to this eventual scenario. And then what was also straight, and if you remember the CEO of the West Indies Cricket Board had said it would all be wrapped up within a week, and then there was absolute silence for about 4 or 5 weeks.
Well, what would have happened is that the team for Phil Simmons had asked for more time because that was a bit too soon. And then the West Indies Cricket Board had their meeting in Dubai, which Michael Muirhead and the president had to attend.
So there were delays.
So that there were delays based on that. And then there was also the whole factor of that one of the people who was involved is now the standing coach. So that might have also played a part. There were a number of factors that came about that case could not have been dealt with there and then. But I think the common sense has prevailed in the end.
Yeah, basically I think that all sides have probably learned from it. I'm sure Mrs. Simmons has learned from it. He has received a number of, I wouldn't say lashes, but a number of criticisms for what he did do. But at the same time, many people have expressed understanding that he is claiming that there were other factors or are other factors at play with respect to West Indies cricket or selection of West Indies.
How do you respond to it now that this seems to probably be behind us? Respond to the idea of outside interference in the selection process. Now, not necessarily speaking to this specific case, because we heard earlier this week suggestions by a former West Indies vice captain that while he was playing, there was outside interference. So it would mean, therefore, that the current selectors would obviously not have been involved. So it's something that's been ongoing. How would you respond to that?
Well, Andrew, I would think that you may be able to speak better to me on that as a former employee of West Indies Cricket Board, but not putting you on the spot. But I think anybody who is being involved in cricket and whatnot has heard the stories. Whether or not you can say the alleged interference is so dramatic or so harsh that it can affect selection of the team. But we've all heard the stories. We've all heard the, if not the apocryphal stories of circumstances in which people have played and not played. I don't think that's unique to
West Indies cricket.
Or West Indies cricket. It's all over, and it's something that when you don't have one person responsible for the selection of a team, let's say football, where the manager, the buck stops at him, there. Where you have a committee system or whatever, you're going to always have these rumors.
I remember, just to carry on a bit, I remember having heard from a former chairman of selectors who suggested that selection was the ultimate compromise. That essentially you picked about 8 or 9 players, and the last 2 or 3 were the compromise candidates. And many times we've seen West Indies teams, and I think we figured out who the compromises were.
There are 1 or 2 people who have had West Indian caps that no one can't figure out how they got them. But so that may well be so. But in the end, selectors do a job, and despite what a letter to the paper earlier this week in Barbados says with respect to another selection.
That was very amusing. Yeah.
There's no court in the world that is going to overturn a selection. Yeah. So we will always hear until the situation stops or how it picks up. There were other people to pay. If there's only one man, and I'm not suggesting that's the right route to go.
Well, Sir Viv Richards suggested that that's the job he would like, to be the war man, remember?
Yeah.
Stops at him.
Right.
So Gary Sobers said that there should be one selector, and people criticized him. That was about 15, 20 years ago.
Right, and Sir Viv said it about 10 years ago when he came off the panel. I remember he was a selector, and he came off the panel suggesting that he would do it only if it was him.
All right, we've got 90 seconds left. Chris Cairns and this perjury case, it's really wrapping up nicely. Is he going to be in trouble?
Nicely for him.
Nicely for not for him, but
well, we haven't
generally
heard Cairns' defense so far, but I mean, I would, from what you're hearing, the fella's really throwing him under the bus, and a pretty big bus at that. But I mean, not only ex-players, but wives coming out and everybody throwing at him. So it's looking fairly bleak, but as you know, until you hear the other side, there are 2 sides to every story, and then the truth.
All right, the truth is that we are out of time. I want to thank Andrew Seeley, Philip Nichols. Of course, earlier we joined Fazir Mohammed live from Sri Lanka, and we also spoke to some of the West Indies players returning home, getting ready for the start of the Professional Cricket League, which starts next week as Barbados they are playing against Jamaica right here at Kensington Oval. And then there's some other matches we're going to tell you about. We look forward to the cricket season. It has started. The cricket season has started. Boy, we're going to be busy for the next 9 months or so. I'm Barry Wilkinson. Join us, of course, on Twitter at LineLength, or you can send us an email, cricket@lineandlength.net. On to next week. Bye-bye for now.